I've been hearing such great things about Pathway Church since I met Pastor Travis about a year and a half ago or something like that, and it's just so good to be with you this morning. I'm all mixed up. I want to really honor Pastor Travis for a second. I call it the Martin Luther test, and I want to say that I think Pastor Travis has passed what I call the Martin Luther test. He once said, "If I profess with the loudest voice and clearest exposition every portion of the truth of God, except precisely that one point at which the world and the devil are at that moment attacking, then I'm not confessing Christ. However boldly I may be professing Christianity, where the battle rages, there the loyalty of the soldier is proven. And to be steady on every other battlefield is mere flight and disgrace if he flinches at that one point." There's a lot of flinching happening in American pulpits and churches in 2025, brothers and sisters. Unfortunately, still, to this day, with the insanity of the last 5 years since the scamdemic and Anthony Fauci, the high priest of humanism, and everything that's been happening in the country, and yet there are still not enough pastors willing to lay it all down on the line and simply preach the full counsel of God. Not getting, political or whatever they call Pastor Travis because he's just applying the Word of God to all of the issues out there, but bringing the Word of God boldly into conflict with the demonic ideologies of the day. But when you do that, you're called now today a Christian nationalist and a political hack. What do people say about Pastor Travis? You just want to be invited to the White House. You just want Trump to retweet you. It's like, I'm just like saying these are all kind of biblical issues. They're kind of all in Genesis 1. And if the church doesn't speak, when babies are killed, when children are mutilated, when they're sexually targeted, when children no longer have a right to a mother and a father in America, and when the Republican Party won't even step up and defend marriage anymore, and children's right to a mother and a father, we need the prophetic voice of the pastorate and the blood-bought bride of Christ to rise again in America. So give your Pastor Travis a round of applause. And by the way, he asked me to say that. No. I'm just kidding. He definitely did not, but I wanted to say it anyway. So, well, why should you listen to me? No uterus, no opinion, I've been told. I'm a pro-life speaker. I run the fastest growing pro-life organization in the country, and I'm a man. And so I should probably get off stage. This is a woman's issue. I deal with this all the time, and I just want to remind, especially the men in the room, abortion's not a woman's issue, it's a human issue. I'm very grateful that my mother didn't have me slaughtered in the name of radical feminism. I'm super grateful for that. And you see, I was a male in my mother's body. So therefore, abortion's not a woman's issue. You see that? And so I've actually been a pro-life activist since I was a fetus. A really long time. You see, my mother ran a pregnancy resource center, just like the local one here in Mobile, in the late 1980s, early 1990s. I was born in 1991. In Los Angeles County. And back then, there weren't very many pregnancy resource centers. And if you don't know what they are, I'm sure you do because you go to Pathway, but love on the moms, help them choose life, tell them not to kill their babies, and give them everything they need and walk alongside with them, okay? It's like the anti-Planned Parenthood. It's like actually planning parenthood. Yeah. You see how euphemisms that the left uses to describe, so like sexually mutilating children is gender-affirming healthcare. And then killing babies is Planned Parenthood or healthcare. Okay, you understand this, right? And my mom was waddling around the pregnancy resource center, loving on moms and saving babies while pregnant with me. But they say my body, my choice, which means whatever's in her body is like not another thing. It's just her body. Because if A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. This was back when they were teaching logic when I was in homeschool. They don't really teach that in the public schools anymore. And so, therefore, every baby my mother saved while directing a pregnancy resource center, I saved. Because I was her body. As a fetus. You guys okay this morning? You following that? So I saved those babies because I wasn't me. I was my mother's body. And so I've been a pro-life activist since I was a fetus. So I have authority to speak to this issue because I came from the uterus. Okay? So just to get all that off the table, We love mothers. We walk with mothers. This church walks with mothers. The Pregnancy Resource Center loves on mothers, but it's not a woman's issue, it's a human issue because abortion kills little humans, both male and female, and I'm very grateful that I wasn't slaughtered, even though a third of my generation is missing because of legalized abortion in America. Okay? Now, have you guys noticed that all of these issues, whether it's, the redefinition of marriage, the killing of babies, the sexualization of the next generation, the sexualization of pop culture, the attack on parental rights, the pornographic filth in the public schools and in the libraries, which I guess some of it's getting kicked out here in some of the libraries in Mobile. I was like, that's bold leadership, right? And the filth that they expose the kids to and all this stuff. You know what's insane about it? You know how quickly things just digress and we lose our country? Democrats 30 years ago would have been horrified at that, and they would have been opposed to all of those issues. Isn't that crazy? When you think about all the issues that we're told now, you're just a political hack, Pastor Travis. It's dude, 30 years ago, all the parties would have been united in opposing what is now the core issues of the Democrat Party. And you're like, how did that happen? Why? Because they're all Genesis 1 issues. They're not political issues. They're all fundamentally spiritual and theological. And so my contention and thesis this morning is that every single major issue that has you maybe a little bit freaked out to hand this country to your children and your grandchildren, the kind of issues that are causing such chaos in education and in the family and in the progressive rainbow churches, the wokey woke ones, right? The apostate churches, that they're all Genesis 1 issues. That the Word of God has spoken very clearly to all of these issues. And all the church needs to do, besides be more like Pathway, is to simply reclaim our cultural mandate found in Genesis 1. So are you guys cool with that if we do that this morning? I think it's really that simple. There was something that happened in California about 2.5 years ago that made me realize, oh my gosh, this is Genesis 1 flipped upside down. This is the inversion of everything God has said. Do you know that ideas have consequences? And bad ideas have victims? Obviously, abortion is a great example of that. But this story struck me really powerfully. It's hard to talk about. I'm going to try to keep it PG. If you do keep your kids in church, if they're under 13 or 12, depending on how much you've told them about our crazy culture, you might want to, have them step out. I don't want any angry emails to Pastor Travis. But in California, the once great Golden Gate communist state of Gavin Newsom, American psycho, who's the nephew of Aunt Nancy Pelosi, where I lived for basically my entire life, okay, that state has gone to the dogs, they decided to pass a bill, SB 729, that would have defined an LGBT couple's inability to reproduce as infertility. Think about it for a second. So non-procreative sexual relationships that fundamentally can't have kids, that's now infertility, is what the legislators in California tried to, thankfully it didn't go through, but almost. So that it would give them insurance-paid access to fertility treatments, including artificial insemination for pregnancy surrogates. In other words, a man would acquire a right to a woman's uterus and the ability to purchase children through surrogacy, and this was being celebrated as an example of what they called fertility equality. Have you noticed that whatever the new evil demonic idea or agenda is in our culture, it's always defended under the language of equality? Do you remember the gay marriage debate? What was the bumper sticker? You still see it these days. The equal sign. And what was the argument? That two mommies, totally the same as a mommy and a daddy. That two daddies, totally the same as a mommy and a daddy. It's all equals. Any two will do. Do you remember that phrase? Any two will do. It doesn't matter the gender of the parents. All kids need are two. That's all that. Well, we know that's not true. Abortion becomes an example of equality. The early feminists argued that we needed Roe versus Wade because it's not fair that women have these pesky things called uteruses. So she has to take time off work and she can't climb the corporate ladder because she's now pregnant. By the way, I totally support legislation forcing fathers to provide financial assistance for any children that they create, whether it's in the context of marriage or not. You knock up a girl, you get her pregnant, you provide support, and you have to financially step up and take care of that child. I think that's a great idea for legislation. But that was the argument of the early feminists. They said it's an issue of equality. To be equal with men in the workplace, we need the right to kill our children. And now, the fact that Pete Buttigieg, our former transportation secretary, says he's married to a man and they can't have kids because the parts don't go together, well, then nature's a bigot now. It's nature that's the bigot. It's not just the GOP or Pastor Travis or any Christian. Nature is a bigot. It's not fair that, and so that we need to call that infertility in the state of California, and we need taxpayers to foot the bills for in vitro fertilization and surrogacy so we can feel equal. Why do I tell you that story? Because we've now come full circle. From the no-fault divorce laws, to the redefinition of marriage, to the killing of babies, to the state saying they're a better parent to your kids than you are, and now to saying, regardless of the gender of the parents, you have a right to children. And even though you're not in a procreative relationship, the state needs to foot the bill so that you can somehow get kids. That's how quickly things unravel when we don't stand on the Word of God and live out these truths in the public square. So I want you to look at Genesis 1:26 through 29. Super simple and beautiful. I'll just read it to you. I'm reading from the ESV. Then God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. And God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves over the earth. And it goes on, and God says, basically, I put everything under your feet, okay? You're the stewards of creation. Now exercise dominion over all of it. Develop the entire natural world. This has been called the cultural mandate. It's the first commandment ever given to any human beings, right? And this is Adam and Eve, like they're perfect right now. There's no sin, no fall has happened yet. So if we want to ask ourselves, like, why are we here? What were we made for? It's to fulfill the cultural mandate. Of course, we sin and we go off track and everything gets screwed up, and then we're saved, we're redeemed, we're put back onto the right pathway. And so what are we here to do? Fulfill the cultural mandate. And by the way, did you know the same cultural mandate gets repeated to Noah? Almost word for word. So what does that tell you? God's like, I know everything got all screwed up because like y'all ate the apple and you husband stood there and watched it and didn't do anything, you didn't step up. I know everything's all like, woo, but I still kind of want you to fulfill the cultural mandate. It's repeated after the fall. So I want to pull out 4 beautiful truths that I think we can pull out from those 4 verses. Number 1, you're valuable because you're created in the image of God. So there's a sanctity to human life that other creatures simply don't have. Plus, I just love cheeseburgers way too much. I'm not saying we should intentionally go out of our way to make animals miserable, but like I want more cows to die. If we stop killing cows, I would be really sad. Like I love cheeseburgers. And I've noticed like PETA is never like picketing outside of cheeseburger. Isn't that so weird? You know, they say that it's a genocide of cows and that we're the same as animals, and yet they don't seem to take that very seriously. Number 2, there are only males and females. I got to tell you, like, I voted for Trump only because I was voting against Kamala Harris. And I'll critique Trump when he does bad things, and I'll praise and celebrate him when he does good things because I'm not beholden to the GOP, I'm beholden to the GOD, if you know what I'm saying. But when he signed that executive order saying there are only males and females, did you see this? And he's like, and that can be determined from your chromosomes and from your DNA, which is there at the moment of conception. And I was like, oh, that's so sad that the president of America and the leader of the free world had to tell 330 million Americans what every human being for all of human history knew up until about 2009. Like, I was happy he signed it, but I was like, isn't that a total indictment of the times we live in? That the president of America had to be like, there's only males and females. It's like, oh my gosh. Come on, Andy Stanley, you woke idiot. Why can't you just preach the truth of God from Genesis 1? Oh, it's because he's so unhitched from the Old Testament. His words, not mine. Yes, the son of Charles Stanley. He says, we got to unhitch ourselves from the Old Testament. Yeah, maybe that's why we have so many woke, weak, and wimpy pastors who won't see that what's happening in the culture is a result of you failing to rightly handle the word of truth and apply it to the culture and disciple your people and the next generation to be dragon slayers in a culture and season that needs the prophetic voice of the church. Okay, number 3, woman was created for Adam, and so marriage is only a man and a woman. So if a dude marries a dude, it's not a marriage. Saying you support gay marriage is like saying you support square circles. It's a misnomer. It actually doesn't exist. And we'll get into exactly the damage that's happened to our children and our country by redefining marriage. And fourthly, in the marriage covenant, have a lot of sex and create babies and spit them out like crazy, way more than the rest of the culture is, and raise up little dragon slayers who only fear King Jesus to go out there and change the world. Okay? Look at that. Those are the 4 things in Genesis 1. And I don't know about you, but I feel like they touch almost everything going on in the culture. Sanctity of life, don't kill babies, only males and females, transgenderism doesn't exist. Marriage is only men and women, so we shouldn't have redefined marriage because now children don't have a right to a mother and father. And in the marriage covenant, right, everyone wants to test drive it before they go buy it. And it's causing insanity in our culture, in our country, and many times in our churches because pastors won't preach the beautiful truth of Genesis 1. Look at that. There you go. I could just step off the platform this morning, and that would kind of be it. If pastors would just do these things. All human conflict is ultimately theological, is what I'm saying. When we misunderstand these 4 verses, what the imago Dei means, what it means to be created in the image of God, and when we fail to grasp and live out the beauty of the image of God in our lives, our families, our churches, and our communities, and when we allow those who hate God to tell the rest of the world what it really means to be this human being, then everything goes to hell in a handbasket really, really fast, doesn't it? And I'd like to suggest to you that there's an old, ancient heresy. It's a false theology of the body. It's the imago Dei perverted. It's this cultural mandate we just read flipped upside down that animates all of the various issues causing chaos in our culture and in our families and our communities. They took our commandment, the cultural mandate, and they perverted it. And they fulfilled their twisted version of the cultural mandate better for wickedness than the church in America has fulfilled it for righteousness in about the last 100 years. Have you ever heard of Gnosticism? We're going to get super kind of heady and weird, and then we're going to make it really, really simple, and you're just going to be like, oh yeah, it's all spiritual. It's just like this. It's like this is just a bunch of demons, and it's just been spiritual warfare for thousands of years. Gnostic dualism or Gnosticism is an old heresy. The church declared it a heresy centuries ago. And early Christians developed this false theology of the body, this perverted view of Genesis 1 that treated God's physical world, the material, natural, created order as fallen and evil and bad. And I'm going to suggest to you that this old heresy has been brought back in the name of progress and is the animating feature behind all of our secular evil. So really quickly, what's Gnosticism or Gnostic dualism? It splits the human being into 2 parts. So rather than treating human beings as like you're a body, mind, soul, it says there's a body versus mind split. And the main ideas that sort of bound the old Christian Gnostics together was this belief in the evilness of anything that was physical. Trees, earth, dirt, your bodies. That this was created by an evil demigod, they believed, that was ignorant of the one true God. And so all physical and material creation is warped. The physical world then is not truth. It can't give you any clues to your real identity. Your body can't give you any clues to who you are and how you should live. And so it's severed from its connection to the metaphysical and the spiritual. This is also just called the materialist view. Have you heard of materialism? Just to really boil it down and make it simple, right? That nature is the product of blind, purposeless, random Darwinian forces outside your control. And so the body is reduced to a collection of cells and organs that the mind is free to use for its own purposes. And so the resulting belief from this is that what we do with our bodies is of no moral significance. The real self is not a body. This is what this split in the early church led to, this belief that anything that is good, beautiful, true, and trustworthy is invisible. Your soul. Spiritual and metaphysical things you can't see or touch. Anything physical that you can see or touch is evil and bad. Now, of course, this is a heresy because in Genesis 1, God creates the physical world and he calls it good. Okay. And yes, sin has entered the picture, but God's physical creation is still good. And it will be redeemed one day. By the way, if materialism is true, then we can't know or be certain that materialism is true, and therefore the true materialist should toss atheism out the window and become a Christian. Because if your mind and the thoughts it generates are the product of purposeless, random, Darwinian chemical forces outside your control, then when those atoms bang together and they create a chemical interaction that results in this thing called thinking, and that's completely outside of your control because you're electrified sludge that coincidentally happened to arrange itself into what we call consciousness. What are the chances? Then anytime you have a thought, it's the product of that random Darwinian material forces that are outside your control that's purely coincidental and has no purpose or reason or intention behind it. So therefore, you can't trust your own thinking. And if you can't trust your own thinking, you obviously can't trust the arguments and the thinking that leads to the arguments for atheism, and so you should toss atheism out the window and become a Christian. And this is why C.S. Lewis said, unless I believe in God, I cannot believe in thought, so I cannot use thought to disbelieve in God. Good morning, Pathway Church. Go read everything C.S. Lewis wrote. Okay, so it's like C.S. Lewis said. He's like that's like knocking over your milk jug on your kitchen counter, and then the way that the milk falls, you're like, it's a perfect map of London. Okay. To quote my friend Frank Turek, I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. Requires a lot more faith to think that when you knock your milk jug over, it will be a detailed, perfect map of London and the underground, than to believe that there's a divine logic of the universe, a logos who became flesh, who breathed it all into existence. Christianity takes a lot less faith than atheism. But do you see this split? This split into saying that anything that is physical is irrelevant, purposeless, random, and doesn't give you any clues to who you are and how you should live. But where did this kooky belief come from? It really requires a whole, 2-hour lecture, but very quickly, ever heard of this guy named Plato? Plato talked about the soul is like a man driving a chariot. So the soul is the man, the soul is the real person, and the chariot is just the vessel for the real man to drive. So if the chariot's like your body and your body's a vessel, then your body's not you. Does this make sense? I'm trying to make it super simple as possible. Picture like a puppet, a puppeteer. Your body is kind of like that puppet. The left is now describing human beings, by the way, as wet robots and meat puppets. I'm literally serious. Like secular materialist bioethicist philosophers, they use phrases like meat puppets and wet robots to describe the human being. Because that's how they view you. Not as a body-soul unity, but as just kind of this puppet that the real you animates. That goes back to Plato. René Descartes, a real idiot, but his impact on the Western consciousness can't be overstated. Even if you haven't heard of who René Descartes is, finish this phrase, I think, therefore, well, there you go. I want to submit to you that in the Christian worldview, it ought to have been I am, therefore I think. Because what does Descartes do? He reduces the human identity down to the mind alone. I think, therefore I am. The thing that is the I am, whatever I am, it's only a product and a result of my thinking. I think, therefore I am. As a Christian, we should say, well, what about the body? Well, no, that's irrelevant, remember? Because Gnostic dualism, there's a duality between the body and the true self, the true identity. But in the Christian worldview, we would say, no. The I am created who I am. And because John 1 says he's the logos, he's the word, he's the divine logic of the universe, he's rationality itself. Who creates me? So therefore, I'm a logical, rational creature too. My rationality and my thinking that separates me from the animals is a result of the fact that I bear the image of my Creator. Christianity would say, no, I am, therefore I think, not I think, therefore I am. But Descartes gives us this sort of view of like, we're sort of like ghosts in a machine. And the real self is this immaterial soul, and the body is irrelevant. It's just a vessel that the real you animates. Are you guys starting to see where some of these ideas might lead in the culture? So listen, if my body's like a vessel or a car, why not take it to the body shop and give it a makeover to make the outside feel like the inward identity? Wait, that sounds a lot like transgenderism. Take your body to the body shop and just cut pieces up, cut pieces off, use other pieces to make other pieces. I'm trying to keep it PG at Pathway, but I assume you know what happens. Do you see how that's a result of Gnostic dualism that has a very demeaning and low view of the body? Guys, Christianity has a high view of the body. Because Christianity says it's not a purposeless random coincidence that your body's made the way that it's made. There's beautiful design and purpose and intention behind it. And when you live in accordance with the Creator's design, you experience the most peace and fulfillment because you're living how God wanted you to live. Christianity has a very dignifying and high view of the body. But this old heresy, which split the church centuries ago, this old ancient Christian heresy called Gnosticism or Gnostic dualism, is the animating feature behind all of our secular evils. And so I announced on social media a couple years ago, I was so excited for my pro-abortion friends to celebrate me and champion me, because I said, I'm Sally. I said, I always knew that I was a woman. And now as a pro-life activist, I'm so excited for my pro-abortion friends to welcome and celebrate my position on abortion as a woman. As Sally, hear me roar. And so having learned the journey of liberating the true, hidden, invisible self from the bondage of irrelevant biology that's not connected to identity, I want to share with you guys this morning for one of the first times. You might have heard it rumored. It's all true. I am trans-vaccinated. You never heard of trans-vaccinated? I learned how to imprint and impress my vaccinated identity and self onto the blob of my irrelevant pound of flesh that's not connected to the real me. And if I'm being honest with you this morning and speaking my truth at this safe space called Pathway Church, I always knew that I was born in a vaccinated body. From the youngest ages. And the trans-vax phobia I've experienced in the culture from people like Anthony Fauci, who mocked my identity and said, you can't be a vaccinated person, you didn't get the Fauci ouchie. I said, are you questioning my real identity? And I might not have the spike protein because I never received the Fauci ouchie, but who I am and what I am is not a body. It's completely severed and disconnected from anything biological. And because I didn't get the biological drug and biology has no relevance to true identity, I changed my vaccine status on my vaccine passport. And I'd like you to refer to me by my vaccine pronouns, VaxxedV. Some of you are like, Pastor Travis, don't bring this guy back. He's like really weird. It's like, was he homeschooled? Well, yes, actually, yes, I was, yes. Okay, so it's a little bit weird, but is anyone really, did you have enough lattes and Americanos this morning? Did you track with that, or are you just like, this guy's a weirdo? Okay, so if a man with male genitals can be a woman, because anything biological is severed from true identity, then why can't someone who didn't get the Fauci ouchie, why can't I, like Bruce Jenner imprinted Caitlyn onto the blob of his irrelevant pound of flesh and emerged into the world as Caitlyn, then why can't I imprint and shove my vaccinated identity onto this irrelevant pound of flesh that's not the real me anyways? Did you know it's okay to mock stupid ideas in the public square? Don't attack people, don't demean people, they're image bearers of God. and such were some of us who believed really stupid and did stupid things, but mocking ideologies that are very dumb and lead to human heartache and chaos, mocking those ideas in the public square is a very biblical thing. It's very helpful because it helps people reawaken their moral and spiritual intuitions. All I've done is taken Gnosticism and the ideology of transgenderism to its natural extrapolation conclusion, which is that I could be trans-vaccinated even though I never got the Fauci ouchie. Now, something tells me Anthony Fauci and his former boss, Francis Collins, who were mutilating children and scalping the heads of full-term babies, something tells me they wouldn't accept my identity as a trans-vaccinated person, right? But have they already adopted and imbibed the heresy of Gnostic dualism that animates their support of transgenderism? I'm just willing to take their ideologies further than they are. Why did I do that weird little thing with you right now that got you really kind of freaked out about me, probably? To show you how dangerous bad ideas are and how much the culture needs a prophetic pulpit and a prophetic church that will just apply the simple, beautiful truths from the first chapter of the Bible to the public square and to live them out and defend them publicly because they have to deal with children and marriage and human flourishing and the next generation. I told you all of this animates all of our various secular culture evils today. It's all theological. Let me give you a couple examples. What about abortion? Yes, abortion is child sacrifice to pagan demons. We should call it that. We should say the names Baal and Moloch. If you've had an abortion and it's part of your past, we love you. Jesus is eager to forgive you. Like King David, who arranged the death of an innocent human being. You might have arranged the death of an innocent human being, but he wants to take your ashes and turn them into beauty and use you to help where you used to hurt. And if you repent and believe in the gospel, like King David, you will say, my child will not return to me, but I will go to him. And you'll be used on the front lines against this culture of death as a voice of life. Yes and amen, stamped and approved, that's the gospel, okay? But abortion is also this modern unfolding of this old ancient heresy. Because how does the left defend abortion? Well, I have the unfortunate job description to go into the college campuses and talking to, pink-haired, majoring in lesbian dance theory, which is actually a major. You can actually major in that. I just learned that. And I talk to these students, and I get all the arguments. The arguments are, well, we can kill babies in the womb because they're not persons. Maybe they have a human body, maybe they have human DNA, because even the left can't deny the science, right, of embryology. That it's not a seahorse. Like all living things reproduce after their own kind. So if it's a male dad and a female mom, I think they can only create according to their own species. So we know it's a human being, but what are the arguments for abortion? But it's not a person. Can I tell you that that's that body versus mind split? That's that Gnostic dualistic divide that says that we are not bodies. We're this metaphysical, spiritual soul. And how do we know that when we come into being then? Well, they say, what are the arguments for abortion? Well, when the thing, sometimes they accidentally call it a baby. When I'm on college campus, I'm like, did you just call it a baby? Do you really know? We have a lot of fun. But they say, well, the fetus, and I say, oh, that's a Latin word for offspring or small child. So you're right, it is an offspring or a small child. I'm giving you little talking points so you can go have fun when you have family over, okay? And they say, well, whatever it is, it's not a person because it's not self-aware, it's not conscious, it doesn't have any desires. Well, those would be what? Metaphysical things that are developed over time. It's true, in utero, or even an infant, brand new born baby, they don't look in the mirror when mom puts a cute little outfit on the newborn and go, Mom, oh my gosh, I look so adorable. Thank you for this cute outfit. I'm aware of myself as an autonomous individual who's never existed before and will never exist again. Not even infants are fully self-aware yet, but that doesn't mean they don't have value or they're not persons. Because you don't have to be worried about that, because we have a worldview and a Christianity that's big enough to make sense of all of that, which is that there's no such thing as a potential human being. There are only actual human beings with great potential. And that you had everything you needed from the moment of conception to gradually unfold your future abilities, even if you couldn't exercise those to their fullest degree right now. By the way, men don't reach their mental peak until their 40s. My wife learned that recently, and she said, hallelujah! And I was like, whoa, I didn't really know what to make. I think she's holding out hope for me. Maybe you can pray for me. But So my point is, I have not reached my full level of mental development yet at 33 years old. But does that mean that husbands aren't full persons now if they're under 40? Well, maybe wives don't answer that question. But so like we're all on a different tick mark on this continuum of human development. We have a Christianity based on Genesis 1 and the imago Dei that says, I don't care if you're not fully self-aware or conscious yet in the womb or as a newborn baby. You have just as much dignity and value and right to life as any other human being. But do you see what Gnostic dualism says? They say the body is irrelevant. The real people are thinking things. I think, therefore I am. Rene Descartes, body versus mind split. So until the baby is developed enough to be self-aware and conscious, then it's not a person. So when you kill a baby through abortion, you actually don't kill a person, you dissect a pound of human flesh, because there was no person there yet. I know it's the weirdest pro-life sermon you've ever heard, but do you see how that's literally an application of this old ancient heresy called Gnostic dualism that says you are not a body? So who cares if the baby's body is human and is being developed in utero? There's no person there yet. I'm telling you, that's an old ancient Christian heresy that divided the church, and it's the animating feature behind all of our secular evils. It's Genesis 1 flipped upside down. By the way, it's the same thing with euthanasia and doctor-assisted suicide that's happening across the West right now. Really bad in parts of Europe. And the Democrats in America would love to do it here as well. Basically euthanizing and killing old people because they're a burden, or maybe they have severe dementia or Alzheimer's. So they're not fully self-aware or conscious of themselves anymore. So the left would apply that person in the same bucket as the unborn child by saying, like the baby in utero, now granny is lacking in those cognitive abilities that we say really makes one a person. And so both are disqualified from the community of persons. Have you noticed that those who dehumanize life at the earliest stages always do so at the other end? Now, is that a scientific political issue? Or is that a false theology of the body that splits us in a body versus mind split? What about homosexuality? Well, we know there's only males and females. But what does homosexuality say? It says, why should my body's design, why should my body's purpose, why should my body's appendages tell me anything about what kind of moral choices I should make? So even though the parts don't go together, we need gay marriage, we're told, because the body's irrelevant. And marriage is based off of attraction, not design and, cohesiveness. It's not a comprehensive union anymore. It's just, I really want this person. A demeaning, low view of the body that says the body means nothing. I know he has those parts and she has those parts, but you see, if you really understand the leftist totalitarian worldview of Gnosticism, you would understand, you stupid Christians, that has nothing to do with how we should live or what kind of relationships we should be in. It's just a random coincidence of nature that the parts go together. So even gay marriage is a result of this old ancient Christian heresy called Gnostic dualism that splits the human being into two parts. I'm starting to sense that it's all Genesis 1 issues, and they've just been better at perverting it than we have been for standing for these truths. So what happens when we redefine marriage in Obergefell? We redefined parenthood, and now children don't have a right to a mother and a father, which is why all across the West, including in America, gay couples are putting sperm and egg together, and two gay dudes will rent a woman's uterus, and they'll go home with the child. Single men are doing this, and then they're sexually grooming the children they take home to raise. So many times, adoptive parents are going through way more vetting and screening processes than two gay dudes who don't have to go through a screening process. All they have to do is get one of their sperm, buy an egg, rent a womb, go home with the child. Do you see how redefining marriage removed children's rights to a mother and a father? Wait, they're only men and women. Marriage is only a man and woman. That's the only thing that creates babies. So Genesis 1 would say children have a right to a mother and a father. This is all Gnostic dualism, all of it. Transgenderism, I won't even spend time on this because I got to land the plane, but I think you see, I am not my body, they say. They say, I'm trapped in the wrong body. Have you heard that language? Trapped in the wrong body. What are they saying? They're saying whatever I am is not a body. By the way, I actually understand the religion of transgenderism because I too was a man trapped in a woman's body and then I was born. Something like that. Oh, and then transhumanism, same thing. Do you know they're trying to upload the consciousness to the cloud to achieve digital immortality? Don't worry, it's not possible, church. But how many people are going to be harmed and how much chaos is going to happen in their attempt to learn how to live forever? It's 1 Corinthians 15. The last enemy to be defeated is death. The left is trying to fulfill biblical promises in their own debauched worldview because they want to live forever on their own terms without bending the knee at Calvary. So transhumanism, I am not my body. What I am is a metaphysical spirit or soul. So what if we uploaded the consciousness to the Google Drive cloud and lived forever? They're trying it right now. All I'm trying to tell you is that all of those issues are Genesis 1. They're our cultural mandate, perverted, inverted, and flipped upside down. And they're living out the demonic, perverted aspect of the cultural mandate better than the American church has fulfilled that for righteousness and the next generation for almost 100 years. So, did I overstate my point? It's all theological. It's all spiritual. And young men are going back to church right now in record numbers that we've never seen before in the American church. And I want to give you my hunches to why. I think young men who know they're created to be providers and protectors and defenders in Gen Z are looking around at the culture in the last few years and going, what the heck is wrong with y'all? That's disgusting and weird. Also, it's really dark. And I feel like I should maybe fight against that. And they're being driven back to churches. Unfortunately, it's not happening in females in Gen Z. It's happening, God's doing something in the hearts of young men, like under 26 right now in the American church. Because I think they're starting to sense that maybe this is just all a dark spiritual war and that they're called to something bigger and higher and larger. And it's the cultural mandate. It's Genesis 1. It's what we were told to do. Go out and develop everything. Exercise dominion. Control the natural order. Then find yourself a woman and marry her and have a bunch of babies, outbreed the pagans, and raise a bunch of little dragon slayers to go out there and slay dragons. And use what I've given you as a way to honor me and safeguard the next generation. This has always been the calling of the church. We didn't end up in this position because of politics. We ended up in this because there's been a demonic war happening since the garden to wipe out the imago Dei from the earth, to target the family and children and the nuclear family, which is God's fulfillment, God's plan for how the world ought to operate. And your body tells you something about yourself and how you should live. So embrace and live that out. That's our playbook. This is our plan. There is no plan B. The church is plan A. This is our job. This is what we do at the White Rose Resistance through our activism in chapters and films. If you'd like to join what we're doing, scan this QR code we have up here. We have all of our tables at the other campuses. If you scan the QR code or join at $35 a month, I've got a shirt for you, and I'd like to give you a bear hug in the foyer, and my team would like to thank you. And then you get our White Rose app, and you get a battle box shipped to your house in the mail in the next 6 weeks so I can turn you into pro-life ninjas and weird homeschool thinking weirdos like me. And then if you join at $70 a month, that's called Air Support, you get my free book, and I'll sign it for you, give you a bear hug. You join our book club, and we read books together to make you weird intellectual ADHD homeschoolers too, and dragon slayers for the next generation. But hey, I love you guys. Will you go out there and give them heaven?